raise your question number here in our night group. Now. So we have 35 and 36. So we will just go direct to 35 and 36. Okay, so we have all the number here. So let's look at the first one. The soil in which coffee is grown must be rich. And let's see this one. First of all, of course, the soil. The soil is the subject, right? So in which coffee is grown must. So here is the adjective clause to modify soil. So basically, the soil must be, we have must be 1, 2, and 3, right? So rich, adjective. Moist, adjective, not moisture. Moisture is a noun, but moist is an adjective. So rich, moist, and absorbent enough to accept water readily, but sufficiently loose to allow. Sufficient loose. Loose is also an adjective, so that'll be fine. Loose enough to allow rapid drainage. Okay. So, and let's go to number 36. Okay. So again, we have to identify the structure of the sentence first. So basically, what is merger? Merger is achieved, the end of the story. So all else are dependent clause. So what is in the dependent clause, we start with when. When is a subordinate conjunction, right? So under the subordinated conjunction, we have a dependent clause. And the subject in the dependent clause is company. And purchase the property, right? That's the end. So of other firms, thus absorbing means that the company absorbed them into one corporate structure. So let's take a look at this one. This is a singular noun, right? Structure, and that represent the structure. So we need to have the retains, a singular verb, not retain. Is that right? Because here our that is used to represent the structure. And since structure is a singular noun, so we need to have a singular verb too. So sustain, retains. We have to put an S here. Okay? Okay, let's go up to 33. Okay, so in the early 1900s, Pennsylvania's industries, so this is subject, right, grew, the end of the story, grew subject and intransitive verb. So this is sentence pattern number 6, is that right? Subject and the intransitive verb. So rapidly is used to modify grew, so no problem. And then here, a grows is to, we say a grew rapidly, and a growth is to use to modify, is to, this one is sometimes it is a positive, used to modify industry, this kind of industry, the thing over here. So growth sometimes accompanied by labor disputes, not disputes, labor. Okay, so a compound noun, you have to put the modifier in front of the disputes. So what kind of disputes? Labor disputes, or if you really want to put labor in the back, you need to use by disputes among laborers. But labor disputes is a compound noun, so there is no need to put that way. So labor disputes. Okay, let's move to number 9, up, 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 and up. Okay, so let's take a look about the structure first. So insulin is kind of to cure your diabetes, right? So insulin we have is manufactured and released, right? So basically insulin leads these two verbs. Insulin is manufactured and released. So basically over here, we have a complete sentence structure already. But now, let's take a look here. Now, it seems that we have a clause here, right? Because this is a subject for the clause, and this is a verb for the clause, right? So basically, what we need here is something that can make it making sense in this way. So we do need to have a subordinate conjunction. So basically, this one is the only choice we can have, because whenever it is a subordinate conjunction. So it can lead whenever glucose reaches a certain concentration in the bloodstream. So basically, if that reaches a certain concentration in the bloodstream, the insulin will be released into your bloodstream, so help you to keep your health. Okay, so this one is the only thing we can have. And let's move down to 34. Okay, so also known as a movie or a film, so far there's nothing wrong, because noun, you are noun. So the movie is noun. So we use noun is a passive tense, no problem for this. So basically the motion picture is one. If you want to say one of something, then you have to one of the plural nouns or the collective nouns. So look here, one of the most popular forms, you have to put an S over here. One of a lot of things. If you say one of one, then you don't have to say that. You just point out one. One form. Is that right? If you really want to use one of, then remember, one of a lot of things. So you pick up one thing out of a collection of nouns. So if you really want to identify, for example, one student, then I will just say one student. If I really want to say one of the students came to my office, then I need to put as students instead of one of the student, okay? You cannot do that. If you only point out one student, you just say one student came to my office. That'd be good enough, okay? So don't use. So basically, whenever you use one of, remember, one of, when you say one of, you mean one of from a collection of the something stuff up there, right? So one of the popular forms. Okay, so 38. Okay, so during the 19th century, the molecule theory of matter was developed, and which refers to the molecular theory of matter, which consider, so there's no problem for this, we consider all matters, you have to put a one S after that, to be composed of tiny individual entity. Entity is a collective noun, so you don't have to put entities, but matters, different matters, okay, you have to use that, called molecules. And 26. Oh, it seems that it's very obvious for number 26, right? Because this one must be wrong. Able is adjective. So we need to have an ability. Is that right? So the ability of writers to precisely record observation made about others enable them. So the ability. Okay, so let's 26 and 25. Okay, so we have in the early 19th century, so the Cherokee Nation of American Indians. This should be a proper noun, but we need to change the Cherokee. But since this is not capitalized, so the subject for this one is nation, okay? So the subject for this one is nation. If the Cherokee Nation, we have a capital N, then the subject will become this. It refers to one state, right? But now it's to modify the nation. So what kind of nation? Cherokee Nation. From where? Of American Indians. So basically the subject for this one is nation. The nation can adopt, because this should be taken off, not was adopted. Because nation is the actor in this sentence. The nation adopted, but not was adopted, okay? Just like if you cook a meal, you cannot say you were cook a meal. No, you don't say that, right? Yeah? Yeah? Sorry? Please, go ahead. Okay, so remember, so nation is the actor who can perform the action of adopt. So we have to take was away, but just adopted, okay? So nation adopted the written constitution. Based is to use to modify constitution. On that refers to constitution. So there's no problem. Okay, so the only one we can take off is was. Okay. 25 and number 6. We move up to number 6. Okay. So the tradition of the bald hat whale hunt. So basically this is a noun, a compound noun. So we have the tradition, and it goes back. It is the fact, right? It is a fact. So goes back 1,000 years and is, okay, yeah, goes and is. Give you a very clear clue. Basically, when we use verb tenses in one sentence, if there's no good reason, you don't shift the voice. You just keep the present tense. So goes back and is. So we have the proper verb here. Okay, so number 12. Okay, so basically the subject for this one is water and water, right? And this is the modifier in the adverb, in the diurnal type of a tidal oscillation. And here is the modifier for the previous statement, the alternate rise and the fall of sea level. So we will understand, we will observe a single high water and a single low water occur each tidal day. Each is an adjective to modify tidal day. And each tidal day is an adverb to modify occur. Okay, so let's go to 23. Okay. Scientists have classified plants over, right? Subject, verb, and object plants. So this is their method by grouping them according to similarity in their overall appearance, not appear. Appear is a verb. Appearances is the noun, plural noun. Appearances, their internal structure and their form of their reproductive organs. No problem. Reproductive organs is to modify organs, reproductive. So we need appearance. Okay, and 34, I believe that I have highlighted. That 34 has been done, but most popular forms, right? And number 3, go up to number 3. Okay, let's see this one. So much of North Canada lies within the Arctic Circle. So remember, much is a pronoun. It's a singular pronoun. So this is the subject. Much lies within the Arctic Circle. And we see there's an and here. Coordinate conjunction means to connect equal parts in the sentence, right? So basically, we have independent clause here, separated by comma, and. So basically, we need to have independent clause here too, right? So look here. Ice or the sparse vegetation known as tundra. But we do not have subject. We do not have verb, right? So let's take a look. Which one has the subject and verb? We have 2 candidates. One here. The other one is here, right? Because this is subject and this is verb. Well, it's a nice candidate. But this one, D, is wrong. Because permanently is an adverb. Permanently cannot be used to modify ice. Ice is a noun. Permanently cannot put before ice to modify ice. So this is only one choice we can have. So let's read it. And it is permanently covered by ice. Well, great, right? So all the sparse vegetation known as tundra. So there's no problem for this one. So basically, how can we understand the structure of the sentence and solve this kind of grammar problems? That would be very easy. If you can identify the structure of the sentence pattern, then everything is solved. Should be very easy, right? Okay, so let's move to number 8. Okay, let's see this one. So the primary digestive function is the subject of the throat and esophagus. I have no idea about the word. but it doesn't matter because this is the verb, right? The function is, and let's say this one, swallow the materials from the mouth to the stomach. So basically, we need to have something that can make the things to move the stuff from here to the stomach. So the only one that we can have is to transport. We need to have an infinitive phrase. So that is to transport, swallow the materials from the mouth to the stomach. Okay, so let's move to the last 40. Number 40. Okay. It was the spirit of 11 southern states from the Union in 1861 that led, not leading, led, L-E-D. L-E-D is the past tense verb for lead, right? So it was before. So led. So, but there's another choice. You can just simply take away that, leading. But since we cannot choose that, right? So we have to change L-E-D instead of leading. Okay, and last question, number 7. Okay, so look here, was born on, right? Was born on Long Island. So basically, we have the son of an impoverished farmer. We do need to have a subject, something like here. Because the son of an impoverished farmer is used to modify the noun before, right? So let's see which one. This one is the only choice. The poet Walt Whitman, comma, the son of an impoverished farmer, was born on Long Island, okay? Long Island was famous for its lobster. So if you have a chance to go there, just enjoy. I enjoyed a lot before, but a lot of hot lobsters. And blue crabs. Blue crabs is awesome. Okay, so we end our Q&A for now, and let's take a 10 minutes break and come back here. Okay, folks, man and market. Today's topic is very interesting in a sense that it just points out to a very fundamental, maybe somewhat philosophical question. That is, why do we need to work? Why do we need to work? This article tells us a very simple driving force, that is the hunger. Hunger is the most powerful weapon to force out labor into a market system. So if we only look at hunger, the word here, right, it seems that we need to paint a rather miserable word for ourselves. So imagine that after I graduated from college, I went into the military service for 20 years. So I was a career officer for 20 years in the Ministry of National Defense for a long time. So basically, my career as a military officer was actually my livelihood to bring in the bread and everything I need for my house, for my wife, for my daughters, right? So it seems of course, I can declare I had a great career before. I love my job, but to its very, very, very substance, that is, I was making some money for my home. That's it. Why do I need to work? Why do I need to work? Because I need to make sure that all the people in my family were fed well. That's it. And how about you? You may have a great ambition right now. You prepare yourself, right? And you get ready for everything that before you can say that, okay, I graduate from here so I can find a good job. I don't think that most of you, that you would talk to yourself, it's okay, after 4 years, I just find another place to hide out. I can dig a hole, I hide out myself, and I enjoy my rest of my life. No, it's not possible because you need to make a living for yourself, right? So the lesson for lesson 10, the lesson 10 tells us, indeed, we need to work in order to survive. Well, maybe not that sad because we have other ambition, we have other career, we have another goal that can drive us to make ourselves useful for the society, right? But we need to pinpoint to the very reason why people work. Why people work. Maybe it's a very simple word here, that is hunger. And after we talk about the lesson, then we will move on to our English etymology and the punctuations too, and also tell you how to finish your assignments. Okay, let's move to the first one. The title here is Miserable Life Under a Market System. It seems not so present, not so bright, right? So let's see the argument here. Can we separate labor from other activities of life so that we put labor into the laws of the market, which means that we ask all people to work. We drive all people's labor force, say, hey, you need to work. So basically the statement here is to separate labor from other activities of life and to subject it refers to labor, of course. We subject labor to the laws of the market. Previously, in our lesson 8, I believe, labor can be bought, can be purchased with what? Wage, right? Land can be lent. So basically, labor, land, and other resources for productions are commodities for sale. Are commodities for sale. No exceptions. So basically, we only consider now the labor here. We put the labor into the laws of the market. That is, they are for sale. Then what will happen? Well, there are two consequences. One is to annihilate all organic forms of existence. Your families, your communities, your neighborhood, the way you live in your countryside has to be annihilated, to be taken away. You are not allowed to live in your own comfy comfort zone anymore. You need to move yourself into a place that you have to compete, you have to struggle, you have to sell your own labor for wage. First one, all organic forms of existence has to be annihilated. The second one, and since they are annihilated, they are destroyed completely, right? So what is the replacement for those organizations? And replace them by a different type of organization. That is an atomistic and individualistic one. So you can no longer count on your families. To some point of time, you have to count on yourself, count on your own self only. So basically, the collectivity that you use to live feels so fine. You don't have to live from your family, but now you have to relocate yourself to another place. And from that point on, you are on yourself. So those old organizations that you used to live in have to be replaced by a new one. The new one is only you. So we say there is an atomistic, very, very simple, simplistic, and the individualistic one. That's only you. you have to go away from your home and put yourself in a laboratory, in a factory, or in some place that call company. So imagine yourself. For foreign students sitting in the classroom, basically you are already taking the first step to get away from your homes, right? And even for the local students here, you are away from home already, unless your home is just nearby, just next door to Wenzhou. Or otherwise, you are already away from home, right? Why you want to be away from home? Staying inside your home is a very comfortable choice. It's very, very comfortable. You don't have to go away from that because your parents will support you, will feed you, right? But now, you believe that you can fulfill your usefulness for the society. And how can you fulfill your usefulness for your society? You have to contribute to your labor. And how can you find your labor useful? Not at your home, of course. You have to put your labor use in somewhere else. And that somewhere else has to be dependent on yourself only, not your family. So basically, you have made your own choices. Okay, so market system, if we see this, it could be very miserable because you have to make a choice to get away all the comfort zone that you have previously, right? But now you are facing a new unexplored charter for your own life. So let's see this one. Freedom of contract to destruct organic society. Now we have to understand what is the meaning for organic society. Organic society is the forms of living, a kind of organizations after you were born. You were in your family, then you do not need to sign a contract to live in, right? For example, after you were born, you are the son or the daughter to some of your parents. Do you need to sign a contract? They say, hey, let me become your daughter. You don't have to sign the contract. So any organization does not require contracts, right? It is your home. It is your organic organization. But now, contract or not, you do not need to have a contract to live your organic society organization, but you do need to have some kind of contract to survive in another kind of organization. For example, school. Do you need to sign a contract to become a student in Wenzhou? Yeah, of course. You sign the contract, you pay the tuition, so the school guarantee your proper quality education. You hope that you pay the money, you pay the tuition, you will receive the proper education. And then after you graduate from Wenzhou, you will find a job. And then you still need to sign another contract. You cannot just get in one company and say, let me squeeze in. Company is not your organic society, right? You need to sign contract. But now we talk about the freedom of contract. We allow people to have the freedom of making contract for themselves, right? So because of this, people eventually will leave their organic society, organic organizations. So in this regard, basically, when we allow people to sign their own contracts, we are destroying our previous organic society, basically. For example, how many of you still live with your parents? Now, maybe you are, right? You are living with your parents. But imagine this, after you graduate from your school and you find your job, and you are leaving your family. And to some extent, the freedom for you to make your own choice, to make another contract with another organization is destroying your organic society to some extent, right? So let's talk about this. So basically, such a scheme of destruction was served by the application of the principle of freedom of contract. Let us encourage people to sign their own contract so they can work for the factory, right? So in practice, this meant what? That the non-contractual organization of kinship, neighborhood, profession, or creed were to be liquidated. If we allow people to follow the principle of freedom of contract, then all the non-contractual organizations, we mean organic form of a society, right, need to be solved. Your kinship, we do not need relatives. You don't need to have a contract to become relative to your relatives, right? And those have to be liquidated. Neighborhood professions need to be solved. They are not there. Since why they need to be liquidated? Why? Because all of this kind of non-contractual organization, as you claimed the allegiance of the individual, and thus restrain his freedom of choice. Imagine this. There's always two choices in front. There are always two choices in front of you. One is your family asks you to stay with them. The other one is the society asking to you, the market system asks you to work into the system, right? And the non-contractual organization, your family, your neighborhood, ask you to stay, ask you to pay allegiance to them. But the problem is that if you choose such to stay with your own organic organization, then you will have no chance to work into the market system, right? So it seems to a dilemma between these two. Non-contractual organization and the contractual organization. So basically, if the market system asks you to work into it, then you have to go away from the non-contractual organization. Either or. So here we see, this meant the non-contractual organization of kinship, neighborhood, profession, and creed were to be liquidated. They are just contradictory to each other. You cannot have all. You have to choose one. Since they claim the allegiance of the individual and thus restrain his freedom. If you want to be free of your own choice, you need to get away from this kind of non-contractual organization. And let's see, to represent this principle as one of the non-interference. Non-interference means that we do not interfere people's choice. We should allow people to make their own choice, right? It seems very noble. Hey, you have grown up. You have to make your own choice. Get to work. When you make a choice to work into the market system, it means that you have to leave your family. Very simple, right? So basically, a lot of economic liberals advocate this. We should allow people to make their own choices, right? But these economic liberals always ask people need to have their own freedom of choice. We should not interfere their freedom of choice. So this is the so-called principle of non-interference. And this principle is strongly supported by these economic liberals. Was merely the expression of ingrained prejudice in favor of a definite kind of interference. When we say we do not want to interfere, but actually it's another form of interference. How? Namely such as would destroy non-contractual relations between individuals and prevent their spontaneous reformation. So when we say we allow people to make their own choice, But actually, this kind of action destroy the so-called non-contractual relations between people. We encourage people to make their own choice, right? But to the end, most of the people will just choose to get into the market system. But once they get into the market system, they will destroy their original non-contractual organization, their kinship, their relatives, their families, their communities, their professions, right? Because they move away that. So to some extent, when we say we don't interfere, as those economics says, we do not want to interfere, but actually they interfere. They interfere into they destruct the non-contractual organizations already. This is what it means. And because of this, those non-contractual organizations have no chance to reform themselves. They just die away. Not really die, it's a figure of speech. They just fade away. Does not play important parts in the market system. Okay. So basically, if we want to have the market system to work properly, then labor has to be there, right? Once you need labor to be in the market system, then where is the labor coming from? Coming from the organic organization, right? So they have to be taken away from these organic organizations. By doing so, economies always advocate, we have to allow them the freedom of choice. Encourage them to make the choice, right? So once they choose to stay in the market system, they go away from their family. And their villages will just fade away. Very simple, okay? So we say, when we allow people to have the freedom of contract, we mean to destruct the organic society completely. And let's move to the next one. So labor market, let's go back to some historic review about what happened to the colonial regions, the labor market. How those colonists force out the labor from their village, the aboriginals from the villages. Let's see this one. This effect of the establishment of the labor market is conspicuously apparent in colonial regions today. So let's say this one. We force people out, right? So we allow them to make the choice freely. So this kind of establishment of a labor market is conspicuously, obviously apparent in colonial region today. So let's see how those white push away the natives into the factory. So here is the plot. The natives, those aboriginals, are to be forced to make a living by selling their labor. Those people who live in their own village, not colonized before, but now they are colonized by the whites. And then they have to work. So they have to sell their labor to make a living. And they are not doing this by their voluntary. They are forced to do so. So let's see this one. So how can we, here comes a very important but simple question. If you were the white, the colonist, you would think, how are you going to force those natives out from the village to work in my factory? There are two choices. One, I put up a very high wage to attract those people to join us. This is one choice, right? The second one is I starve them. I use all the methods to make them feel hungry. So they have no choice but to join me. Which one will be more effective? Well, history tells us the second approach is much more effective to push labor into the factory. Let's see how it does. Okay, so to this end, their traditional institution must be destroyed. We want to force them out to sell their labor into the factory, right? So to do this, to this end, we have to destroy their traditional institutions. Must be destroyed first. And we have to prevent them from reforming. It seems very cruel, but it is the effective weapon to force people out. Let me destroy your village first and make you have no other ways to make a living. So you have to work for me. Ooh, so sad, so miserable, right? But this happened before. So they will destroy their traditional institutions, and they will try very means to prevent them from reforming. Because, as a rule, the individual in primitive society is not threatened by starvation. Basically, let's imagine this. Those natives, they lived in their village before the colonization. They were not threatened by starvation because everyone is helping out everyone else, right? So if they feel comfortable, if they can feel that they will never experience starvation, will they have the motivation to work? Of course not. Of course not, right? So, since as a rule, the individual in primitive society is not threatened by starvation at all, unless the community as a whole is in a like predicament. So basically, this group of people, native people, collectively, they will help each other, no matter how, unless all the collectivities are in the same situation. Well, okay, so let's see this one. Here comes several examples for primitive individuals not wanting to leave their organic society. So that we have two examples. One, under the land system of the Kafis, for instance, destitution is impossible. Destitution means extremely poor and no means to survive is impossible. Why? Because whosoever needs assistance receive it unquestionably. People in the same class system, they will just help each other. So look here, they do not make money, but they still survive happily, right? They don't. And the other one is no quakiuto, even ran the least risk of going hungry. There is no starvation in society, living on the subsistence margin. Everyone can just get by. Even they are equally poor in terms that they do not have money, but they do not have to work hard because everyone helps everyone else out. So there is a mutual help society, okay? Although they do not have money, they are equally poor. So imagine this, if this continue to just like this, the people living in this kind of society have the desire to go out of their village and work in the factory in the city? Of course not. Why? Okay, so the wise started to think how to push this kind of people out from their village. Okay? They make the second choice. Not raising the wage to attract them, but to make them starve. So they force them to work in the factory. So how they force? They force out labor by denying man's freedom from want. Freedom from want, that is, want means that you need something to survive, right? So basically, you should be provided for the basic subsistence for you to live, to survive. But now, No, no, no. I want to take away all the things you need to survive. How to do this? So the principle of freedom from want was equally acknowledged in the Indian village community, and we might add, under almost every and any type of social organization up to about the beginning of the 16th century Europe. Freedom from want. That means everyone should be basically provided for the minimum requirement for survival, right? Okay, so this is the freedom from want. And this principle has been universal through times in many, many different places. So when the modern ideas on the poor put forth by the humanist vibe, the vibe is the philosopher, and he is also a humanist, who started to argue about why people become poor. And it was in around 16th century. And before the Sorbonne is the University of France in Paris, the Sorbonne. So basically, in the college, in the University of France, they debate why people become poor. What do you think? Why people can become poor? It is because of the lack of their efforts or the unfair treatment from the society. Which one you think? Why people become poor? There must be reasons, right? Some will say that people are poor because they are not good enough. They do not put enough effort to improve themselves. Another school of philosophers or academics, they will argue people poor because of the society does not provide fair and equal opportunities for those people to struggle, to make themselves useful because of the unfair social system. So basically, there are two grand approaches to look at the same issue. Why people become poor? One is because of the lack of individual efforts. The other one is because of the unfair social system. So which one you think is right? That is a very profound philosophical debate, right? But this debate started centuries before. Okay? So it is absence. Here comes a very, very simple conclusion for this. It is absence of the threat of individual starvation, which makes primitive society, in a sense, more humane than market economy. And at the same time, less economic. Let's see this one. The absence of the threat of individual starvation. If you have never the chances to get starved, right? If it's through your life, you are always satisfied for your own living. And whenever you want to eat, you have something on your table. Although that is not refined, that is not acquisitive. That is just a very normal food, but you still can just get by. Then if you have everything to live for another day and never worry about that, you feel happy for your life, right? To some extent, the level of happiness is much higher than those people working in the factory, worry about the salary all the time. Because you can just enjoy your life without feeling hungry, right? So basically, in this sense, you are living in a world more humane than market economy. More humane, much more humane. Because you can live like a man instead of a machine. Okay? So, at the same time, less economic. What does that mean? Since you always feeling fine about yourself, satisfied about yourself, then in this regard, you have less motivation to work hard, right? So if everyone has no willing to work harder, then of course the economic society does not fulfill its full potential. So we say less economic. Just like a utopia, just so you want to enjoy, right? We can provide you, you can provide me, so we don't have to work, then let's have another brighter day, brighter next day. Wow, great. So look here. We know this is good, but this is less economic. And if we allow all the people just enjoy their own life, then who are going to work in the factory? My goodness, right? And who is going to fulfill the great purpose of the capitalism? Well, my goodness, if we think about this, no one work in the factory, no one want to contribute their efforts, no one is working for the society, then the society does not progress at all. Ironically, the white man's initial contribution to the black man's world mainly consisted in introducing him to the uses of the scourge of the hunger. So in this regard, let's say this one. In the black man's village, they do not have the desire to work. So the first contribution for those white colonists to those black society is to introduce the beautiful power of the scourge of the starvation. I want to hunger you. I want to starve you. Let me show my power. And their efforts is just like this. First one, they want to create artificial scarcity to force our labor. If the white colonists allow the black natives to happily live in their own village, if they continue to do this, then there will be no labor force for their factory, right? So they think how to force them out. First of all, they use the so-called artificial scarcity. They create the artificial scarcity to force out labor. So what do they do? What did they do for this? Thus, the colonists. They decide to rot the breakfast tree down, to cut it down, in order to create an artificial food scarcity. You have trees to grow fruit, right? No problem, I cut it down. Now you don't have food. Wow, so cruel, right? But this is what they did to them. And the next one is they impose a hard tax on the native to force them to barter away his labor. Previously, those black natives did not need money. Okay, now I want you to pay the tax money, right? So how could those native blacks earn money? They have to barter away their labor in the factory. So they earn the wage, earn the money to pay the tax to the white. There are two things. One is about food. You can count down your crop, no problem, I cut it down. There's no food for you. So you start to think, how can I find my food? You need to have money to buy food. Okay. One. Number two, I don't need money. No problem. I impose tax on your house. Now, from now on, you need to pay hot tax. Where could I earn money? Oh, you could work in my factory. So you have to sell your labor over there to earn wage, to pay the tax. So all of these creation are work artificial. Not made by nature, but made by the colonists. So sad, right? So in either case, the effect is very similar to that of the Tudor enclosure with their wake of vagrant Poles. Vagrant holes are the wanderers rolling on the different mountains and hills, forced out by the Tudor enclosures. It happens somewhere, sometime between 15th and 17th and 15th to 17th centuries. Those nobles in England force out all the people. Once they enclose the land belong to them, then all else have to leave. This is not a place. This is my land. Go away. So they force out a lot of people wandering around and walking around. Since they lost their lands, then they have to work. They have to make a living, right? So they sell their own labor. They become the slave of those nobles. So that's why we say in either case, the effect is very similar to this. Similar to that of the Tudor enclosure with their wake of vagrant hordes. So there was a report. A League of Nations report mentioned with the due horror the recent appearance of that anonymous figure. Anonymous means vicious. Figures of the 16th century European scene. That is the so-called the masterless man in the African bush. The masterless man in the African bush, what does that mean? Before the colonists came into Africa, those natives had their own villages, had their own huts, had their own lands, right? Their own cattle. But now, their cattle were taken away by the colonists. Their crop trees were cut down by the whites. And also, their houses were imposed by the tax by the colonists. So they have to leave their village. So they started to wander around the African bushes and try to find the living, trying to find a place to live, to work, to make some money. So we started to find out a lot of masterless men wandering around the African bush. They try to find out something belong to themselves. So sad, right? Even myself, I feel sorry about this group of people. They had, but now they have not. And why? It is because the whites believe that if they destroy, they create this kind of artificial scarcity, they will force them to get into the factory. Yeah, indeed. Indeed, they have fulfilled this goal. But in the meantime, also cause a lot of people wandering around the bush and without the place to call themselves as home. So sad, okay? So during the late Middle Ages, he had been found only in interstices of society. So this masterless man, if we go back to the Middle Ages, somewhere in between the 11th century to 14th century, yes, we have this kind of people, like beggars, homeless, right? But it's very, very scarce because people always can find something to live on. Even they live in the forest, even they live just by the riverside, they can just hunt. They can count on themselves to make a living. So interstices means just scarcity in the society. But now, those people, the masterless man, was the forerunner of the nomadic laborers of the 19th century. So now in the 19th century, we found out that this group of people always eager to find jobs and ship themselves from one place to another place, to another place, to another place. And why they want to do this? Because they just want to make a living, so they would not starve to death. Hunger is the most powerful weapon to drive people into the labor market. Sad, right? But fortunately for us today, Let's look at us for today. We have the society to protect us. The labor law, right? We have a fair treatment, the equal opportunity of employment. We emphasize on the equality between employers and the employees. The law does not allow any more about the deprivation of the labor force, right? Why can we have such today? Because we have experienced the miserable past, and we have progressed. That is the good use of the philosophy. That is a good use of politics, right? So we have advanced, but we still have to remember why people in the past were so miserable. Okay, and continue. So extract labor with the smashing up of social structures. So basically, we have the very, very simple way to force out labor. That is, let's smash up the social structures they had. We destroy all the social structure of their previous social structure. So they have to move themselves into the cities to work for me, for us. So now, let's see. Now, it refers to the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Now, what the white man may still occasionally practice in remote regions today, namely, the smashing up of social structure, for the purpose to extract the element of labor from them was done in the 18th century to white populations by white men for similar purposes. We always do that. Humans' history in the previous days is full of deprivation, is full of torture from one group of people upon another group of people, right? We have a hierarchy of different classes all the time, and that happens, okay? So let's look at Hobbes. Hobbes goes test the vision of the state. Leviathan. Do you know what is Leviathan in this case? Let's use Google to pop up a picture for you. Oh, so strange. Why is that? Okay, this is a picture for Leviathan. Let's see this one. So I just want to give you some idea about what does this mean. Hobbes, his idea about the society is that everyone in the society has a specific purpose for living. So if you take a look about the Leviathan here, this one is Leviathan, a giant person, okay? So if you look deeper inside the picture, you will find out that all the components here, all the elements here, let's say this one, we have a lot of here, right, over this. Actually, they are individuals. Everyone inside the collection of the Leviathan. Every part of the Leviathan, the fingernail is a person. The hair is composed of person. The nose is another person. The eyes is another person. And we can see all the people there are individuals. So all the individuals combine together to form the Leviathan, which means when we say one society is a Leviathan, right? Everyone inside the society has to perform some function. One and the only. So imagine this. If you were a person here, you live here, right? then your major function is to perform the shoulder function. If you were the eye, then all your life you perform your function as an eye function. Will you be able to travel from this place to, let's say, to become the fingernail? No, you are not allowed to, because you are fixed as an eye function there, right? So what does it mean? If we see this one, everyone has a specific function for the society, and the function remains the same through all life. Which means if you were the eye, you were an eye for life, right? Okay, imagine this. If you perform the same task all your life, will you have a strong motivation to do your job well? Basically not, right? You just get by the life. Oh, okay, I'm the eye, I'll just keep my eye over there all the time. And this is eye, right? You have no desire to make a better eye because this is eye only, right? So as long as it can see things, then doable, right? So imagine this. The functionality of the individual inside the Leviathan is limited. It's not fulfilled to their own potentials. We cannot have a wonderful eye, 100% of capacity of eye over there, because it's not possible. You do not have the desire. Okay, so this is one kind of construct. We are talking about the labor efficiency. Labor efficiency for the individuals in the Leviathan model is limited. Is that right? Because you do not have the motivation. But let's look at another one. Okay, let's take a break and I'll come back later. Good time today. Okay, so we call Ricardian construct of the labor market refers to comparative advantage. Have you ever heard about the term opportunity cost? Opportunity cost, right? Because of the opportunity cost, whenever you have a lower opportunity cost for production, you have a competitive advantage. Then if you have competitive advantage than the others, then you will produce more for this, right? If you want to have more production, then you need to recruit more labor. Is that right? So in this regard, people are moving. The workers are moving around from one place to another place to pursue the efficiency of the labor force. Is that right? So which one is more efficient in terms of the use of labor? Of course, Ricardian construct. Ricardian construct of the labor market is more efficient than the so-called human Leviathan. Human Leviathan, people don't move, just stay there, right? So that's why we say this model, the human Leviathan was drafted, is lower, inferior to the Ricardian construct of labor market. Because in the Ricardian construct of the labor market, we can see a flow of human lives, the supply of which was regulated by the food put at their disposal. If there's a job, you are swung into that direction to look for your job, right? Once you work for your job, you have a job, then you have money, you have wage, because you sell your labor for wage. So you can bring your wage money back to you, and you can buy food. You can put your food on your table. So in the Ricardian construct of the labor market, people are moving, always searching for the better place for work. But in Leviathan, people just stay put over there. They don't have to worry about the money, because as an eye, if you were the eye, then the bloodstream will go through you, that you will be provided for, right? Just like a public servant, you stay there, you don't have to work hard, you will stay in your life. So this is the Leviathan. So compare these two models, which one will be more efficient? We have to make sure that people are allowed to freely move from one place to another place, to search a better job. When we talk about better job, it's not because of the better environments for working happily. No, better job, a place that can earn more money. Okay. Okay, so now, I think about the food is so important for us to consider where we use our labor force, right? So there will be some scenario that you will fetch any labor price for food. Labor price, of course, wage, right? So although it was acknowledged that there exists a customary standard below which no laborer's wage could sink, we have a minimum wage requirement here in Taiwan, in many different countries, of course, right? So for now, what is a minimum wage? 172 or 76? If the employer pays you, let's say, 100 per hour, well, you could sue him, right? You can go to the court, you mistreat your laborers, right? So basically, there's a certain point, a minimum wage, that you will not go any lower. But this kind of limitation, let's say the limitation, this limitation was thought to become ineffective only if the laborer was reduced to the choice. If you have to make a choice. What kind of choice? One, being left without food. Fine, you don't want to work, fine. But if you still have food, that will be fine. But if you have no food, what would you do? The other one is, you could left without food, because if someone offer you $100 per hour for you to work 4 days, 5 days a week, or maybe 7 days a week, and 10 hours, 12 hours a day, oh my goodness, that's a child labor, just like you, right? So being left without food, you can make a choice. And the other one is, I have no way. So you have to offer your labor in the market for the price it could fetch. If you have no food, and nowhere else you can find a better job, then there's no choice for you. You just accept $100 per hour. This explains, incidentally, and otherwise inexpressible omission of the classical economist. Namely, what it does, I mean, why only the penalty of starvation, remember, this is very cool. Cruel, not cool. The penalty of starvation. It is the penalty of the starvation, but not also the allurement of high wages was deemed capable of creating a functioning labor market. So which one is more efficient? Offering you a high wage or offering a lower wage that you have to work so that you can buy food for yourself? Which one is more efficient to squeeze out the labor force in the market? Well, sadly, to acknowledge, that is, it is the penalty of starvation is more powerful. Let's use the colonial experience to confirm this law. For the higher wages, the smaller the inducement to exertion on the part of the native. Let's imagine this. The white colonists cut off their trees, their breadfruit trees, and also impose hard tax. By creating this kind of artificial scarcity, then the natives have to work to pay money, to buy food, right? So this is the so-called penalty of starvation. If you don't work for me, you die. Sorry, too exciting. So if you don't work for me, you die, or you endure the starvation. That's fine for me, but not fine for you, right? So this is the one. So basically, history shows that this approach is very, very efficient to squeeze out the labor into the market. Okay? But how about I give you higher money, a higher wage to elicit you to go out of your village? Let's think about this. If you were the native, then you lived in your village, You never experience hunger. You never have you have no idea about the use of the money because there is no use for money in your village, right? Okay, and now a factory tells you that I'll pay you a little bit higher or higher money for higher wage for your labor. Well, you go there. The motivation would be certainly very low, right? Because no need. Whenever there's no need, then there will be no labor force. Okay, so here, who unlike the white man? Because the white, this one, the native is very different from the white man. Was not compelled by its cultural standards to make as much money as he possibly could. In their cultural practice, they have no idea about using money. They don't like. They just don't like, have no idea about the use of the money. So in their culture, money is not significant. So in this regard, it would be very difficult to say, hey, I pay you higher wage, so come to work for me. No way. They don't want to. They don't want to. So this is the colonial experience. It's fully confirmed this statement. And let's move to hunger. Here comes the one. So we have a very, very simple conclusion, but also a very cruel conclusion here. Hunger is the most powerful force to create labor. The analogy was all the more striking as the early laborer to uphold the factory. In early days, those laborers, they hate the factories. Sometime after the Industrial Revolution, in the late 18th century and the beginning of 19th centuries, a lot of white and moved themselves into the factory in England cities, British cities. And they work there, they have to accept the low wage. And their condition, at that time, there were no labor laws to protect them. So let's see what happened. Those people, they really hate the factory. Why? Because over there, he felt degraded and tortured. It's very difficult to imagine, right? If you work for, let's say you work for Foxconn, and you are tortured by the factory. My goodness, what kind of word is that, right? It does not happen. It won't happen today. But it really happened 100 years ago. It really does this one. Just like a native, the early laborers, the white laborers in British cities, they like the native, who often resigned himself to work. Resign himself to work means that they force themselves to work in our fashion only when threatened with corporal punishment. If you don't work for me, I will beat you. I will hit you. I will beat you with my slash. Very difficult to imagine, right? And if not physical mutilation, means that if I beat you and you still don't want to work for me, fine, I will cut your head. I will cut your hands away, or just take your feet away. Can you imagine that? Of course not today, right? But here comes a very important point, right? People work not because they try to pursue their sense of achievement. It is because they have to. They are forced to. They need to make a living, or otherwise they have no other way to survive. This happened before. Okay, the lions manufacturers of the 18th century urged low wages primarily for social reasons. This is the manufacturers for wool, fabrics, and so on, right? It's still, we are still using lions products today, the work coat and so on, right? So it has been here for centuries. So at the very beginning, they want to have workers working for them, but they did not provide high wage. They advocate low wages because they argue only an overworked and a downtrodden laborer. I want to exhaust your energy. I want you to work for me 12 hours a day and no rest. Would forgo to associate with his like. Then you are so tired. So you will have no ability to organize your own labor union. Forgo to associate with his in order to escape from that state of personal servitude. So imagine it, so cruel, right? It's not modern at all. We are lucky to live in a modern world because we do not need to experience this kind of torture before. But actually, the entrepreneur in the 18th century, 19th century, they always believe that if they want to prosper, they have to take this on the expense of the labor. Labor is just a tool to manufacture for us. That's it. Okay? So basically, labor at that time, they are servants. So servitude, just like an enslaved, they are slaves for us. Okay? So under which servitude? Under the servitude, he could be made to do whatever his master required from him. So if I were the owner of the factory in the 18th century in England, I could be very bossy. I could be very cruel, right? So don't talk to me, just work for me. This is the money I could give you. Take it or leave it. If you want to leave it, fine, go home, enjoy yourself. Bye. See you no other day. So time is different. Okay, so how can they make the so-called willing worker really want to work for them? Hey, come, work for me. So basically, let's see this one. There are several ways taken by different European countries at that time. For example, there are legal compulsion and parish serfdom as in England. That's a law requirement. And the rigors of the absolute labor police as on the continent, in the continent Europe. And indentured labor as the early Americas. Indentured means that you will be taken away your nose, you work for me, or just a mark over here, take off your ears, and you belong to me. And all of this is the make of willing workers. Are you happy? Thank you very much. Thank you. I love you. Work for me, and I will take away your nose. Indentured. So, by the final stage, this is not all. This is not sufficient enough. But the final stage to make all the people to work for you, to rush into the market system, was reached with the application of the nature's penalties, hunger. Hunger. So in order to release hunger, it was necessary to liquidate organic society. We do not want your family to provide you all the means you need to survive. They need to be destroyed. Those non-contractual organizations need to be liquidated, need to be dissolved. They are not allowed to exist out there because those organic society refuse to let the individual starve. Your family, when your family member, when they see you're hungry, they will prepare a meal for you, right? They refuse to see you hunger. If you can be fed by the food, proper food all every day, then your incentive to work hard will be certainly quite less. Fewer than before, less than before, right? So this kind of organization, organic society, have to destroyed, taken away, dissolved. So remember, why do you want to work? Why do you want to work? Many years ago, many hundred years ago, people work because they are hungry. But now we have a higher and more noble cause for that, right? Why do you want to work? Not because of hunger. Hunger is the basic and the minimum requirement that you want to solve. But the others are the career and sense of achievement you want to achieve by yourself, right? You choose one major in college, and you master in this major, and after you graduate from the program, and then you will find a job that is possibly, hopefully, that is as close to your what you have learned in school, of course, right? And you want to become useful. Want to become useful. So in this regard, let me talk about myself. Am I useful? I think so. I think so, right? I have done some contribution to the society for ages, for 60 more years. But next, it will be your turn to make yourself useful. Okay, let's talk about etymology. In etymology, let's have several words here. Let's say creed. Let's use creed first, okay? There's another form for creed, like a creed. CRED is to believe. So let's see this one, credit. It's very simple, right? Credit. Credit actually come out from this creed, believe, and also IT, to go. So what is credit? Something you go to believe. So you have something to go to believe card, credit card, right? And something you go to believe in your statement, you have a credit. You have some money over there. So if you see the money, you go to believe that you have $100 credit. Okay, and also credit has another meaning, contribution. So if we have finished a project, right? And I and several students work together to finish one project. So basically, it's not only my credit, it's also the credits of the students. So their contribution, their help. So it's something to go to believe their efforts in this effort. Okay, so this is the credit. And this one, equal. So equal basically is a level, even, or just. So equal, that's AL. AL refers to an adjective. Adjective ending or non-ending. So equal means of the same. Equality is the status of being equal. Okay? And a native come out from nat or nas. So basically, if this is born, right, we can just simply put a nascent. What is the meaning of a nascent? ENT is adjective. Emerging, new, that's it. Okay, so we have a native, right? Native means that they are born over there. So they are not civilized. They are not civilized by modern civilization, modern cultures. So they are natives. Okay, so basically it would be a good idea for you to learn etymology so you can train yourself. And there's a app. You can use your cell phone now. And you can go to your app shop and type the name ETY, etymon9. Let me type it. Okay, etymology online. So come on, install this to yourself. You can check it, the meaning of the etymology all the time. It will be very helpful. Etymology online. So you can install it. So whenever you have problem, you just type in and you can use this. Now I have this one, right? So if you check out creed or anything here, you will find a bunch of the explanation over there. You just go there. So etymology online is very useful for you. So you can try a little bit by yourself. So in the future, I advise that when you read articles, try not to look up the meaning from the dictionary yet. And you could use etymology online to check out the meaning and to see the combine the roots for that words, and try to understand the meaning of each root, and try to make sense of the combination by yourself. Okay, for example, now, when I see this credit, I do not use, just remember this in Chinese, 信用. No, I don't. I always remember this as the combined meaning, to go to believe. So everything can be used for to go to believe. Let me give you one example, conductor. Let's see this one. So we have a word here, conductor, right? So what is the meaning for conductor? Actually, there are several meanings in Chinese, right? We can have the conductor is a person who lead the orchestra, means the choir to sing, right? So with this one, let's sing together. Hallelujah. This is what we have, conductor. And also conductor is a person who leads the train, who check out the tickets in the train, right? Okay, so a conductor for the train is the person who stand on the platform and then say, on board, off board, and then the train is departing, right? So it's a person to lead the people, okay? And the conductor has another meaning. If you check out from the dictionary, you will be amazed. The conductor has so many meanings in different usage. Conductor is a conductor that can allow electricity flow to get through, right? Conductor to get through the electricity, 导体, right? So instead of remember the different meanings, it will be much easier for you to remember the basic meaning of the combination. Let me tell you. OR is something. Something, some person, something, someone, right? Okay? And DUCT is to lead. And CON is together. Together. So someone to lead a group of musicians together is a conductor, right? Or someone to lead a group of tourists together onto the train is the conductor. Or something to lead electricity together, of course, is the conductor, 导体. So look here. It will be much easier for you to remember a word instead of to memorize different definitions in the dictionary. It's much more efficient, okay? And etymology online can be very helpful because it's a habit for you to practice. Whenever you have a problem, whenever you have a new words in front of you, you just go there to check it out, the meaning, and try to read a bit. Gradually, you will have the sense of learning English vocabulary in a much, much more efficient way. Okay, so this can be very helpful. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Punctuation in English. Again, I put up the chart here again. So basically, these are English punctuations. English punctuations are different from the Chinese punctuations. So don't misuse them. Don't misuse. And here is the example how punctuations are so important. So let's see this one. So under the cross-land system, this combined together with a hyphen, it indicates these two are combined together to become a adjective. crawlland system of the Kafirs. So we have this, for instance, providing a post to provide you more information. So destitution, because this is direct quote, this one, quotation mark and quotation mark, it indicates this quote is directly from the original source. So destitution is impossible. And do you see this is column here? The purpose of the column is to provide additional information to clarify why destitution is impossible. Okay, so now the subsequent information for why destitution is impossible is whosoever needs assistance receive it unquestionably. And we have a period and an end with a quotation mark. So see, we have a 2 quotation mark here, right? Starting from here and ends with here. So basically, all the punctuation marks in English, in any kind of language, it does serve purposes. They have specific purposes for that, okay? So when we see this one, we know this is a direct quote from the readings. And the next one is Hobbes says. Hobbes is one of the social contrasts, right? We have 3, Rousseau, Hobbes, and Locke. So Hobbes' grotesque vision of the state. So look here, we have a dash and a longer dash here. This one provides a definition. These segments provide a human leviathan whose vast body was made up of an infinite number of human bodies. The yellow part, enclosed by 2 dashes, are actually used to provide explanation to the grotesque vision of the state. So you can see this one is used to modify vision, right? So grotesque vision was drafted by the Ricardian construct of the labor market. Then we see this one providing explanation. Why? You see this one? Why? Why Hobbes' vision was drafted by Ricardian construct of the labor market. So here is the reason. So we have a why here. Reason. So you can see here, a flow of human lives, the supply of which was regulated by the amount of food put on their disposal. And this happens in Ricardian construct of the labor market, but not in the grotesque vision of the state. Because inside the Hobbes' grotesque vision of the state, a human leviathan, you don't need to work hard and the food is still there. Is that right? Because the leviathan cannot take it away. Imagine you are the eye. Leviathan cannot just take it away, your eye away, so I don't like you. You don't work hard, I take it away. And you are the finger, I cut it off. No, they don't do this. So as long as you are there, and you will be fed. So why work harder, right? But in the so-called Ricardian construct of the labor market is totally different. You have to find your own job. You have to find a better job for yourself, offer a better wage for yourself. So the flow of the human lives move much faster. Is that right? So this is what we talk about. Okay, so punctuations are really important. Don't take light of that because it provides very important information for your writing. Okay, so let's move to the next one, assignment number 1. Elaborate why you would not experience starvation if you were a member living in the crawlland system of the Kafirs. Of course, there are some basic understanding for this. Because if you are a person living in the crowdland system with the Kafirs, you are poor, but you are provided sufficiently by your community. Is that right? If you are hungry, then your folks, your non-contractual organization will support you. So in this case, you will have no experience for being hungry. It's very difficult, unless the whole community just get doomed. But it's very unlikely, right? Okay, so you have to remember, we talk about elaborate, means that you have to discuss fully in detail, not just write 1 or 2 sentences, right? So it's a good time, good opportunity to train yourself essay writing. Next semester, we have English writing for international affairs. And you will learn a whole pack of the skills, how to write academic essay well. But before that, you still can have thoughts, right? You can still have the creativity by yourself. So basically, this semester is aims to train you to write out your own idea. It doesn't matter what kind of style you have produced. It's okay so far. But for now, your ideas counts. So you have to present your idea and try to say something. The next one is, if you were a masterless man in the African bush, why did you become such? Elaborate your rationales. To whom that should be blamed for this? I don't know. Why? Why you lived so well? You lived in your village so well, but why did you want to leave your home and wander around the bush and without cause, without goals, without objectives, and without a place you can call home? So sad. Why? Must be something. These assignments provide you a very good opportunity to think about you and the society, the connection between you and the whole society. Everyone can do something for the society. And everyone can be hurt by the society too, right? So how can you reconcile yourself with you and your own society? Could be something very interesting for you to think. The ability to think is much important than the ability to memorize. We don't want you to memorize, because if you really emphasize on your ability to memorize, then it will be better for you to become a computer, right? So, but you need to have the ability to think, okay? Number 3. According to Polanyi, why was Hobbes' vision of state a human leviathan drafted by the Ricardian construct of the labor market? I talk about this a lot, right? So I would like to see how you think about this one. Everyone has a different observation about the same statement. But what about you? What about you? What do you think about this one? Would you rather to become an individual and residing as part of the Leviathan? Or would you rather to be an individual unit moving around to seek for the best offer from the job market? Either way can be a life, can be your life. There's no right or wrong, just a different choice, right? But now we talk about why was Hobbes' vision of state was drafted by the Ricardian construct. Why is that? Okay, there must be some basic criteria to evaluate the statement. Maybe labor market, labor efficiency, and so on, right? Okay. So these are the assignments for us, and next week we are going to have our workshop number 3, and primarily emphasizing on the use of the verb tenses. And then 1 week before the final, we will practice on the English punctuations. So after the 2 workshops, we will have our final examinations. So get prepared. The format of the final the final examination is very similar to what we had in the midterm examination. Basically, you have to prepare your essay questions, and you have to, you have to learn, familiarize yourself with the grammar issues and also the vocabularies and Latin roots and so on. Okay, and good luck and have fun for the rest of the week. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.